Astagfirullah, Bimo.
Tapi,
Bim, siapa yang nyuruh jemur sepatu butut di sini?
nong pakai roti kalau ngomong nggak hati-hati. Ini sepatu bersejarah, biar kena matahari, biar cepet kering.
Ya ngerti, emang gunanya dijemur itu biar kering, cuman jangan di sini juga jemurnya, Bim. Kan di sana bisa tuh, di situ juga bisa. Bim, tempat lain kan bisa.
Biar dijemur di sini.
Ya Allah, nggak di situ juga, Bim, sama aja. Lihat gak sih, ini sama ini konsepnya sama. Pindahin. Apaan sih? Bentar. Ini dicuci sekarang buat dipakai besok maksudnya? Pakai ini besok?
Iya.
Apaan sih? Enggak, yang bener aja. Enggak. Udah diam.
Apa sih?
Siapa sih yang nggak pantas lah nih? Cek, online shop.
Bagus nih.
Bim. Bim. Wah, bagus sih ya, Bim.
Apa sih ya?
Ada logo halalnya.
Pakai handphone sendiri.
Ada sertifikat halal.
Astagfirullah. Jangan dong, Bimo.
Rija.
Bimo.
Handphone.
Aduh. Handphone. Sini.
Lu badan lu berat banget sih, ah.
Sini, udah kainnya jangan injek-injek lagi dong. Kenapa sih kalian kayak anak kecil banget? Order sepatu aja sampai berantem kayak gitu. Udah baikan dulu, baru diorderin. Mau gak? Senyum.
43.
Iya, udah tahu.
45 ya.
Tuh, udah trusted dia. Terus juga ditulis sama dia, no pig skin lining at all. Berarti dia pakai kulitnya yang halal.
Tapi duitnya halal nggak?
Astagfirullahaladzim, masih ditanya juga.
Iya,
kayak baru kenal.
Tapi halal kan duitnya?
Ya Allah. Nggak jadi ya?
Iya, jadi.
Nggak jadi ya?
Iya, jadi.
Jangan bikin emosi dong. Duit hasil foto masa nggak halal? Cepet banget kan? Katanya sore udah bakal sampai barangnya.
Paket saya, Pak.
Mana paket? Iya, Pak. Tanda tangan. Tunggu sih. Terima kasih, Pak. Happy banget. Keren kan? Iya. Coba kakinya lebih rapat lagi. Oke. Sekarang naikin kakinya, naikin. Nah. Senyum. Oke. Ingat, yang penting halal. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Bapak Ibu dan juga Sobat ISEF. Kami ucapkan selamat datang di virtual platform tour dari Indonesia Syariah Economic Festival 2020. Saya Randy Wicaksana akan memandu Anda untuk mengintip canggihnya virtual platform tour dari ISEF di tahun ini. Indonesia Syariah Economic Festival atau ISEF merupakan salah satu event keuangan dan juga ekonomi syariah yang terdepan dan terbesar di Indonesia, mengintegrasikan pengembangan sektor keuangan dengan perekonomian sektor real yang dihadirkan secara istimewa, yakni secara virtual untuk Anda dimanapun Anda berada. Sobat ISEF, tour kita mulai dengan melihat sebuah bangunan yang Anda lihat saat ini di layar Anda menyerupai sebuah dom. Ini kita jadikan sebagai rumahnya ISEF untuk melangsungkan berbagai macam kegiatan ISEF di tahun ini. Yang unik dari bangunan ini adalah menggunakan motif batik kawung. Batik sendiri adalah ciri khas dari bangsa Indonesia. Motifnya yang sederhana tapi elegan menjadi salah satu ciri tersendiri yang kita harapkan akan Anda mudah ingat dari motif batik Indonesia. Selain itu, bentuk dom ini rancangannya diambil dari kubah masjid yang melambangkan rumah Islam yang menaungi seluruh kegiatan ISEF. Masya Allah, gimana keren ya? Udah canggih, keren pula. Sekarang kita lanjutkan tour dengan masuk ke welcome gate dari platform ISEF ini. Tapi sebelum saya ajak masuk, kita ajak Sobat ISEF untuk melakukan pendaftaran terlebih dahulu ya. Usai mendaftar, Anda bisa masuk ke lobby ISEF dengan terlebih dahulu memasukkan data email, password, dan kemudian klik login. Welcome to virtual platform ISEF 2020. Yang Anda lihat saat ini merupakan lobby utama dari virtual platform. Gimana? Keren kan? Yang Anda lihat di belakang saya ada sebuah layar besar bertuliskan agenda. Di sana Anda bisa melihat berbagai jadwal kegiatan dari penyelenggaraan ISEF tahun ini. Di sebelah kanan layar Anda ada social media wall yang berisikan berbagai unggahan dan juga updatean yang ditampilkan secara real time dari sosial media ISEF, baik dari Twitter, Facebook, hingga Instagram. Berikutnya akan muncul panduan navigasi untuk membantu Anda mengetahui bagaimana cara menjelajahi virtual platform ini. Lobby juga bisa Anda saksikan dari angle bird view seperti ini. Jadi semakin memudahkan Anda untuk melihat ada apa aja yang berada di area lobby. Sobat ISEF, di bawah saya ini terdapat berbagai icon yang bisa Anda gunakan selama Anda menjelajahi virtual platform ini. Di sisi paling kiri Anda terdapat sebuah icon bergambarkan rumah bertuliskan lobby yang jika Anda klik akan membawa Anda kembali ke tampilan lobby setelah Anda menjelajahi virtual platform ini. Salah satu kegiatan penting dalam penyelenggaraan ISEF 2020 ini ialah International Showcase. Sobat ISEF bisa mengunjungi 10 island. 4 diantaranya berada di area lobby.
Komite Nasional Ekonomi dan Keuangan Syariah Island,
Research and Education Island, Sustainable Fashion, Sustainable Lifestyle Island, Social Development.
Sobat ISEF, sekarang saya akan mengajak Anda untuk mengunjungi Komite Nasional Ekonomi dan Keuangan Syariah Island yang beranggotakan 15 kementerian, otoritas, dan lembaga. Komite Nasional Ekonomi dan Keuangan Syariah atau KNEKS diketuai oleh Presiden RI dan dibantu oleh Wakil Presiden RI sebagai Wakil Ketua selaku Ketua Harian. Merupakan sebuah lembaga non-struktural yang bersifat independen dalam pelaksanaan tugas dan fungsi wadah kolaborasi, beranggotakan 3 Menteri Koordinator, 7 Menteri, Ketua Dewan Komisioner OJK, Gubernur Bank Indonesia, Ketua Dewan Komisioner LPS, Ketua Umum MUI, dan Ketua Umum Kadin, dengan Menteri Keuangan merangkap sebagai Sekretaris yang bersama-sama bersinergi mendorong pengembangan ekonomi dan keuangan syariah nasional untuk mewujudkan visi Indonesia sebagai pusat ekonomi dan keuangan syariah dunia. Island ini akan menampilkan informasi berbagai program, kebijakan, dan berbagai macam produk yang diinisiasi, dicanangkan, serta telah diimplementasikan oleh seluruh anggota Komite Nasional Ekonomi dan Keuangan Syariah.
Setelah puas melihat island, sekarang saya mau ajak Anda untuk menikmati fashion show. Fashion show sendiri akan dimulai dari tanggal 28 hingga 30 Oktober 2020 yang akan menampilkan beragam karya busana muslim dari perancang busana kenamaan dan keren. Untuk berpartisipasi dalam kegiatan internasional dan domestik webinar sesuai dengan minat Anda hanya tinggal klik button International and Domestic Webinar. Kegiatan ini sudah berlangsung sejak Agustus 2020. Selain itu, juga ada kegiatan talk show. Kemudian juga ada business coaching, workshop, business matching, dan one-on-one meeting. Jangan takut ketinggalan karena Anda bisa kembali menyaksikan semua rangkaian acara kami di platform ISEF 2020 ini. Di exhibition hall ini, Anda bisa menemukan beragam jenis produk unggulan yang tersebar di 10 island yang berbeda, mulai dari Healthy and Organic Food Island, Sustainable Fashion Island, Islamic Boarding School Island, ada juga Islamic Commercial Finance Island, Islamic Social Finance Island, ada juga Coffee and Tea Island. Kemudian Agriculture, Herbs and Spices Island, Muslim Friendly Tourism Island, dan juga ada Ethnic, Craft and Cosmetics Island. Temukan juga beragam jenis produk lainnya di Other Sectors Island. Sekarang kita coba masuk ke salah satu island. Kita masuk ke Healthy and Organic Food Island. Di sini sudah ada contoh beberapa display makanannya. Bisa kita lihat ada rendang dan gudeg dan juga abon serta dendeng. Kalau misalnya Anda berminat melihat gudeg dan rendang, tinggal klik. Nah, di sini bisa langsung melihat berbagai informasinya termasuk link untuk ke e-commerce-nya langsung. Jadi bisa langsung berbelanja. Masya Allah. Jangan lupa di ISEF 2020 juga terdapat berbagai hadiah menarik termasuk e-voucher dan juga souvenir untuk Anda. Meski sudah puas berbelanja di Exhibition Hall, jangan lupa bahwa di tanggal 28 Oktober 2020 nanti akan dilaksanakan opening ceremony. Anda tinggal klik button opening ceremony dan hadir di tanggal tersebut yang insya Allah juga akan dibuka secara resmi oleh Presiden Republik Indonesia. Wah, tidak terasa Sobat ISEF, kita sudah sampai ke penghujung dari virtual platform tour. Tapi ingat, ini baru sebagian. Bahwa pandemi COVID-19 yang melanda Indonesia dan dunia bukanlah akhir segalanya. Justru ini munculkan peluang baru, lahirkan karya dan inovasi. Menyatukan jarak dalam dunia maya bukan lagi hal yang tidak mungkin. Virtual tidak lagi hanya dirasakan di film saja. Tapi kini, di hadapan Anda, virtual terasa nyata. Salam sehat untuk Sobat ISEF semua. Sekarang kita kembali ke acara.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon to all of us. Excellencies, honorable guests from Ministry of Finance, Bank Indonesia, IAEI and KNEKS, respected members of the audience, as well as, of course, respected speakers and panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin the sessions by reciting the first surah of the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. Welcome to this international seminar, or webinar rather, the role of Islamic Investment Bank in promoting infrastructure and countries' development, lesson learned from YC member countries. This event is jointly organized by Bank Indonesia, Indonesian Association of Islamic Economists, or IAEI, National Committee for Islamic Economy and Finance, or KNEKS, as well as PT Sarana Multi-Infrastructure, a special mission vehicle company under Ministry of Finance. We are, of course, fortunate to have a strong lineup of experts, experienced investment bankers, as well as regulators with us today. Welcome again to this webinar. We are, of course, also delighted to have all members of the audience, respected practitioners, as well as members of the academia, as well as I'll also see some students representative as well. Welcome to this webinar. I hope you will enjoy the seminar until the end, inshallah. We have, of course, the main event, as well as we have some quiz later for the best questions, as well as some quiz, a couple of quiz, because the organizers have prepared some giveaways, inshallah. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, to begin this webinar, I would like to invite Bapak Taufik Hidayat, Bapak Dr. Taufik Hidayat. He is the Director of Islamic Financial Services of KNEKS to deliver an opening remarks. Bapak Taufik is an experienced finance professional, especially in institutional investor context. Prior to joining KNEKS, he was investment director for the state-owned pension fund, PT Taspen Persero, as well as commissioner for Badan Amil Zakat Nasional or Basmas. He is also an academia and actively writing in newspapers as well as journals, articles, of course. And we are indeed fortunate to have Bapak Dr. Taufik with us today. Bapak Taufik, the floor is yours for the welcoming remarks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Luky. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Honorable Dr. Luky Alfirman, Director General of Budget Financing and Risk Management, Ministry of Finance, Republik Indonesia. Distinguished speakers, Mrs. Sylvie Degani, Director of PT SMI, Mrs. Irianti Hadiningdyah, Director of Islamic Financing, Ministry of Finance, Republik Indonesia, Mr. Muhammad Safri Salul Hamid, Senior Managing Director of CIMB, Islamic Bank Berhad, Dr. Muhammad Bilal, Research Economist, General Counsel of Islamic Bank and Financial Institution, CIMB, Bahrain, and Dr. Ahmad Omar Fahad, Head of Sharia Compliance, Syria Investment Bank Bahrain, and Dr. Lukian Tamani, Deputy Director of KNEKS. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I hope that we are always in sound, safe, and in healthy condition. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. May peace and blessing of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala be upon all of us, who has also allowed us to meet virtually in this hopefully insightful international webinar as part of the 7th Indonesia Sharia Economy Festival on the role of Islamic Investment Bank in promoting infrastructure and countries' development. Lesson learned from the OIC member countries. Salawat and salam always be delivered to our the beloved Prophet Muhammad SAW, who has brought the light of Islam to all of humanity and guide us from darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge and wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, Islamic Investment Bank has a vital role in the Islamic economic ecosystem, especially in supporting the Islamic financial industry sector within the country. Islamic investment banks function as an intermediary role between investors, corporations, and government, as well as provide essential services, including structuring large-scale and complex financial transactions, financial and investment advisory, underwriting, and IPOs, managing funds, and also private placement which comply with Sharia principles. The presence of such an institution is pivotal to strengthen the Islamic economic ecosystem and contribute further to countries' development and providing long-term Sharia compliant financing facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of Islamic investment banks that have been established and operate in OIC member countries. They are providing services to various corporations as well as government agencies. However, Indonesia has not established an Islamic investment bank in its full capacity as project financier, arranger, or deal maker in mergers, acquisitions, and other corporate financing activities. The absence of this type of institution leads to a structural gap that may hamper the development of Islamic finance in the country, as well as the contribution of Islamic finance towards national development. These conditions are reflected in several indicators. Firstly, the limited financial capacity of existing Islamic financial institutions to prepare and provide funds for large-scale corporate and also infrastructure projects. Secondly, market share of the overall Islamic capital market in the second quarter of 2020 is recorded at 17.7%. Thirdly, the underwriting process of sukuk in Indonesia is primarily handled by a conventional securities company. Therefore, the master plan for Indonesian economic Islamic finance architecture to the Indonesian Islamic Economic Master Plan 2019 up to 2024 have recommended as establishing an Islamic investment bank in Indonesia due to the hitherto missing capacity in the country. In order to actualize this recommendation, there is a need to learn from other Islamic investment banks from OIC member countries. Ladies and gentlemen, in this international webinar series, we are keen to study and observe how Islamic financial institutions, including Islamic Investment Bank, contribute to the development of the country and enrich the Islamic financial industry at the global level. In this occasion, KNEKS has invited experts, practitioners, as well as government officials to discuss and explore opportunities for Islamic financing in infrastructure and also countries' development. And most importantly, we need to learn from global best practices of an Islamic investment banking ecosystem to identify potential opportunities and also challenges that Indonesia may face in development of Islamic investment bank. Finally, I would like to convey our special thanks to all parties who are involved in organizing this event, especially the Central Bank of Indonesia, PT SME, Ministry of Finance, and Indonesian Association of Islamic Economists. Our gratitude also goes to all respectable members of the audiences for attending this seminar. Let's pray and hope that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is and bless upon us so that the programs that we have planned so far could be implemented for the benefit of the people and also country in particular, as well as the global community. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Lukyan.
Thank you, Pak Taufik, for your opening remarks. And of course, it's a warm welcome to all the participants from overseas as well as from home, and also for all participants. Next in the agenda is the keynote speech by Director General of Budget Financing and Risk Management, Minister of Finance, Bapak Dr. Luky Alfirman. Pak Luky Alfirman is an economist by training. He graduated from Institut Teknologi Bandung in industrial engineering, and then he went to University of Colorado Boulder, where he obtained master's and PhD in economics. He joined Ministry of Finance in March 1995, and from then on, he rose through the ranks to his current positions in charge of managing government fiscal finances. In addition, he is also very active in professional associations, including IAEI, where he is the head of trade, investment, and fiscal divisions. Welcome back to the event. And for the keynote speech, please welcome Bapak Luky Alfirman. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Lukman. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May Allah bless us all with good health and prosperity. Very good afternoon as well as very good morning. It's an honor for me to be here today to deliver a keynote speech on the prestigious event that brings together experts, regulators, academics, and influential market players to discuss the role of Islamic Investment Bank in promoting infrastructure and country's development. As a part of the 7th Indonesia Sharia Economic Festival, ISEF, which envisions Indonesia to become a global hub for Islamic economic development. First of all, I would like to greet all of you, prominent speakers, and all participants of this international webinar. I would like to extend my appreciation to the National Islamic Economy and Finance Committee, or KNEKS, for organizing and inviting me to today's event. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, according to the latest Pricewaterhouse publication in June 2020 regarding the global infrastructure trend, the infrastructure sector sits at a collision point of global disruptions, including shifts in capital availability, evolving social and environmental priorities, and rapid urbanization. However, the emergence of COVID-19 introduces an altogether new set of challenges. The full impact of the pandemic will take years to play out, and it is expected to reshape the infrastructure industry in 4 ways. Number one, intensifying its focus on operational resilience. Number two, the affordability of infrastructure. Number three, the deployment of new technologies. And number four, the need for sustainability. Successful infrastructure delivery requires close alignment and collaboration between a wide range of participants, including financiers. The aftermath of infrastructure development slowed down to the pandemic. The government needs to set up policies as jumpstart to boost and reshape the infrastructure industry. The pressing global need for substantial infrastructure is widely recognized. Infrastructure is critical not only for meeting basic human needs, but also for supporting economic growth and maintaining quality of life. For population worldwide, upgraded or new infrastructure will be pivotal to the future availability of clean drinking water, housing, busy space, electricity, lighting, sanitation, and other vital resources. Urbanization, population growth, economic expansion, forces that are particularly powerful in developing countries, are making the need for new and updated infrastructure even more urgent. The Asian Development Bank (ADB) estimates that sum of 1.7 trillion US dollar will have to be invested annually in infrastructure across Asia through 2030 if the region is to maintain its growth momentum, eradicate poverty, and respond effectively to climate change. For Indonesia's case, infrastructure development is one of the President's main directives as a strategy in implementing the Nawacita mission and in achieving the goals of Indonesian Vision 2045. Infrastructure strengthening is aimed at supporting economic activity and promoting equitable national development through development of basic service infrastructure, development of multimodal connectivity to support economic growth, urban infrastructure development, development of energy and electricity, and development and utilization of information and communication technology infrastructure for digital transformation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in the future, governments will remain the largest players generating revenue for infrastructure development costs through taxes, tolls, and other user charges. Although users and customers will inevitably pay in the future to benefit from the services that infrastructure enables, government will ultimately continue to fund and underwrite it. This makes closing the gap in less developed countries especially difficult because their governments and citizens generally have fewer resources to contribute to infrastructure than do their more developed counterparts. Some money is available in the form of grants, concessional loans, and the like. But in terms of getting infrastructure development underway, the government cannot finance the needs alone. So multilateral development banks, MDB, international financial institutions, and other sources of private finance will all continue to play an important role. However, it is important not to think of these MDBs and IFs as playing a substantial gap-filling role. It is more important to focus on how their resources can be used to draw in more resources. As for Indonesia, to achieve the economic growth target of 5.7 to 6.0% per year on average in the medium-term development plan, or RPGM 2020-2024, an investment of equivalent 2.4 trillion US dollar is required for 2020-2024. Of the total needs, the governments and SOEs, state-owned enterprises, will contribute around 8 to 10% and 8 to 9% respectively, while the rest will be met by the public or private sectors. So in an effort to achieve the GDP growth target in 2020-2024 RPGM, the need for infrastructure spending reaches equivalent 438 billion US dollar, while the government's ability to finance is only equivalent around 162 billion US dollar, only 37% of the total needs. The need for infrastructure development is not only because the financing gap is still substantial, but also it has significant multiplier effect to other sectors. And this is the factor that may attract potential investors as well as capital inflows. For this reason, innovative efforts are needed to encourage public and private entity participation through the what's so-called public-private partnership scheme, or PPP, and other creative financing schemes. This is in line with the new infrastructure funding paradigm, which makes the state budget or local government budget as the last alternative source of funding. In spite of limitation of funding capacity of the government budget, the government remains committed to accelerate national infrastructure development. This is reflected in the increasing budget allocation for infrastructure spending in our 2020 state budget, which amounts to around 423 trillion rupiah. In addition, various initiatives were also carried out by government to increase infrastructure financing capacity, among others, by using the infrastructure project financing scheme through Sukuk Negara, in addition to other various sources of financing. The role of Sukuk Negara in project financing, or we call it Sukuk project, has also increased significantly. Total Sukuk Negara project financing during the period 2013-2020 has almost reached around 118 trillion rupiah, with a total of around 3,000 projects in 8 different line ministries across 34 provinces. Some in public sectors which were financed by Sukuk Negara are, among others, railway lines, railway stations, roads and bridges, university building, Islamic school buildings, asrama haji, and so on. Another creative and innovative financing to boost infrastructure development is Green Sukuk. Green Sukuk is issued to finance eligible green projects in accordance to Green Sukuk framework, as well as to support sustainable development as a part of Indonesian commitment to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 29%, which is as usual, or 41% by international support by 2030. This is our commitment in our NDC following up our ratification of our Paris Agreement. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the global economy is challenged with VUCA, vulnerability, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. The international community are in need of more structured initiative to secure their objective in delivering robust and sustainable economic development. The lack of infrastructure support make the effort to bring prosperity to the people even become harder. Henceforth, amidst the shortcomings we are experiencing, more innovative initiatives are required to take place which offer more opportunities for us to develop. Today's topic to discuss about the role of the Islamic Investment Bank is very monumental, is very relevant, since its existence would provide governments as well as the Islamic finance industry with wider ranging infrastructure and instruments to support the development. Also, the role of Islamic Investment Bank is also essential to outreach and building up market perception towards an Islamic economic and finance system that is supported by broader investment base. The Islamic Investment Bank is also expected to carry out multiple objectives which address challenges in many fronts, including infrastructure development and at the same time liquidity market infrastructure that is expected to improve the risk-taking capacity of the Islamic financial players in withstanding unforeseen market shocks. I do hope that today's discussion will also consider the objective and initiative that have been set by the government and regulator so that the development of Islamic finance industry in Indonesia can run harmoniously to further boost not only infrastructure development, but also to bring prosperity for the Ummah. Further innovation in many areas of products, regulatory, market infrastructure, investor basis, education is a must. Consequently, we should provide our best effort to develop the Islamic financial industry. Finally, I would like to congratulate KNEKS and all strategic partners for their admirable continuous effort in providing discussion opportunity through this international webinar. I hope this event would confer me with many fruitful thoughts, ideas, thinking, so that the growth of Islamic financial industry will be more considerable, both in terms of quality and size of for the prosperity of our countries, so that we all can play a significant role to the development of Islamic finance globally. Thank you. Billahi Taufik wal Hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Bapak Luky Alfirman. And clearly, he mentioned that there is a financing gap in infrastructure development at the rate of 438 billion US dollars, and where the government is contributing only 37% of it. And clearly, there's a room for private sector participations in filling up the gap in infrastructure development. Thank you so much again, Pak Luky Alfirman. Now, before we move on, we need to have a brief photo sessions. I would kindly request all participants, especially the keynote and opening remarks speakers, as well as all the panelists, to open the video, your Zoom camera, and be ready for photo sessions. I will make a countdown. 3, 2, 1. Smile. Dr. Omar. 3, 2, 1. Once more, final one. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, all participants. Bapak Luky Firman, if you would like, Bapak Luky, if you would like to say, most welcome. But otherwise, if you have other commitments, it's up to you, Pak. All right. Thank you so much again for the welcoming remarks as well as keynote speech just now. Before we proceed, let me just remind again all participants the questions. If you have any questions or comment later, please do type in the chat box that is the Zoom facilities, and then I will read out later during the Q&A sessions. Now, to begin the webinars, and of course, I would like to welcome all the members of the panel today. I would like to perhaps put a context a little bit in addition to what Luky Alfirman has just mentioned earlier. Now, if you look at in the case of Indonesia, for instance, the past year, the rapid pace of development and infrastructure projects that we have was accelerating and promising at the same time. We were very optimistic that our investment in infrastructure, especially in our country and other IC countries, I believe, is an important ingredient for our sustainable growth and progress. The World Bank, for instance, estimated that there is a gap that we need to fill in investment in infrastructure facilities in the regions of $500 billion. Now, despite this pandemic, although it is something that we have to deal with, and despite our efforts also to find a cure as well as effective solutions to the economic recovery in the aftermath of COVID-19, we must keep our medium and long-term perspective in place. For instance, our need to fill this gap in healthcare, regional disparity in terms of public facilities in Indonesia, as well as connectivity between islands. Indonesia as an archipelago requires this kind of solid, strong interconnectivity between our people and regions. So this is the requirement that is still need to be considered despite our efforts, hopefully short-term efforts to fight the pandemic of COVID-19. Now, it is indeed at this moment the right time to reflect on the situation, our infrastructure gap, and also to explore all sorts of possible models and solutions that perhaps Islamic finance could offer to our country's economic recovery and development. Now, we are excited, of course, to have a credible panel today who will share their experience, their vast experiences in addressing the challenges faced by institutions providing long-term financing to meet a growing demand for state-of-the-art or the least decent infrastructure for countries like Indonesia or other OIC member countries. Now, for many OIC member countries, I believe it seems that fixing infrastructure is a sure path to becoming a developed nations. No doubt about it, but of course, we need to consider other priorities as well. But no doubt that infrastructure is a key foundation for our the future development. Now, first, in the panel, I would like to invite Ibu Dwi Irianti Hadiningdyah as the first presenter, and then we'll have the second one will be Ibu Sylvie Ghani, and then we'll have Dr. Mohd Bilal, and then Dr. Ahmad Umar, and finally we'll have Encik Muhammad Safri. Now, before I invite Ibu Dwi, I would like to read a little bit about her profile. She is currently Director of Islamic Financing at Ministry of Finance. She oversees the issuance of government sukuk since the beginning, including the world's first retail sukuk, as well as the sovereign sukuk, SBSN, and also, of course, the latest one, the sukuk tabungan or savings sukuk. Now, Indonesia currently is the largest sovereign sukuk issuer, and in its 15 series, as well as the sukuk retail is in the 13 series. Ibu Dwi earned her bachelor degree in law from University of Diponegoro, as well as master's in economics from University of Delaware in the United States. She has been involved in developing sukuk negara since the very beginning, including the preparations of the contractual and legal documentations. Now, without further ado, I'd like to invite Ibu Dwi to present her presentation. Please welcome.
Okay, thank you, Pak Lukman, for giving me a chance to share about our experience in developing sukuk negara and its contribution to support national development financing. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, with the blessing from Allah, hope we are all well and healthy. Thank you and high appreciation to the committee, of course, for giving me this great opportunity to share a success story of sukuk negara, especially in supporting national development financings. It's an honor for me to be here among all distinguished speakers and participants in the excellent event. Maybe my colleagues will help me to share the presentation.
The committee will do. We'll just say next. They will move the slide for you.
Okay. Please next. Yeah, I would like to start with show you the data about infrastructure financing needs in 2020 to 2024. Infrastructure development certainly requires a lot of funds. Based on National Development Planning Agency estimation data, it is estimated that an investment of 445 trillion IDR for infrastructure needs in the next 5 years. As we know, the government has a limited state budget, and I think from the capacity to support those financing needs is around 37%. And of course, so it requires other sources of financing, and we expect it to come from SOEs around 21%, and the private sector about 42%. Next, please. And now we would like to see how the sukuk negara or sovereign sukuk that issued by the government play the key role in supporting Sharia economy and financial development in Indonesia as well as in global market. Within 12 years, several sukuk negara innovation have been made, and more than 1 decade, we successfully issued more than 1,500 trillion IDR, equivalent to 100 trillion IDR. 100 billion IDR with outstanding of more than 900 trillion IDR. In issuing sukuk, we use 3 methods, which are book building, private placement, and auction. Our domestic investor here consists of financial institutions and individual investor, including foreign investor, but foreign investor in domestic market only contribute about 5% for now. And while global investor consists of 1/3 comes from US and Europe, and 1/3 come from Middle East investor, and about 1/3 comes from Asia, including Indonesia. In terms of Sharia structure, we have been developed 4 types, which are Ijaro sell and leaseback, Ijaro al-Khadamat for hedge fund sukuk, and Ijaro asset to be leased that currently we use for almost the whole series, and Wakalah for global sukuk. Next, please. Several sukuk negara innovation have been made within 12 years. First, we can say that Pak Luky already mentions about project financing sukuk, or we call sukuk project, was introduced firstly in 2013. Within 7 years, many infrastructure projects have been financed through this kind of sukuk. And Pak Luky already mentions about what kind of infrastructure that already support through this sukuk, such as road, bridge, university building, laboratorium, and so on. And the total budget already allocate about 180 trillion IDR, or equivalent to $8 billion. And the project was spread out along 34 provinces. And to make more effective and efficient monitoring and evaluating the projects, we already developed and implemented MONEF by online system. And the next innovations, we already implemented online retail sukuk since 2018. And this is considered, we promote this platform 2 years before this pandemic. So it helped us to do issuance in this year during pandemic. And this is online retail government securities or SUKO online investment in online platform which provides easy access for retail investor to be able to order online platform 24/7. It means 24 hours, 7 days during the offering period. And the government appointed bank, securities company, and fintech company as distribution partner for SUKO retail issuance. For the next innovations, we already have a green SUKO, and this is considered as the first sovereign green SUKO in the world. We already issued 3 times in 2018, 2019, and 2020. And this is a good experience for us. Why we issue green SUKO rather than conventional ones? Because green SUKO format and for green format and SUKO format has a very similar platform, because for green format needs project to be financed, and for SUKO format needs project to be utilized as underlying. So even though we have 2 kind of instrument in the global market, but we prefer to issue green SUKO rather than conventional one. And the response from investor about our green SUKO is very good. About 29% we got a new green investor for 2018 and 2019, and alhamdulillah in 2020 we just issue in June last June, we got increase in terms of a number of green investor is about 34%. And the recent innovations, it is cash wakafling SUKO, and actually Indonesia already launched these types of SUKO last 2 years in 2018 when what we call IMF and World Bank annual meeting in Bali. Next, please. This is SUKO retail that already mentioned by Pak Lukman, I guess. SUKO retail, we have a purpose to issue retail SUKO, not only for budget financing, but we aim to encourage society transformations from saving-oriented to investment-oriented society. And then we start issue in 2009, and 7 years later, as I mentioned before, that we already introduced online platform, and this is a very success because we can tap new kind of investor, which is millennial investor, because it's very easy to order through online platform, just as easier as you order online ticket, or maybe to order food by GoFood. So it's very easy. And currently there are 13 retail SUKO series already issued, with total investor reach more than 300,000, and 6 saving SUKO series with more than 72,000 investors from 34 provinces. Next, please. This is, you can see all the picture, actually, all the projects that we finance through SUKO projects. In relation to support the acceleration of infrastructure development starting in 2013, the government has issued SUKO Negara especially designed to finance infrastructure project, namely project SUKO or SUKO project. Total project financings already mentioned before, 118 trillion IDR, and total around of project around 3,000 projects in 8 lines ministers. And as part of the strategic initiative this year, as a strategic initiative national project in the 2020 state budget, we will an investment scheme in order to accelerate the provision of national infrastructures. Sorry, just a minute. Pak, saya lagi presentasi, Pak. Mohon izin. In order to accelerate the province of national infrastructure. So we would like to do more and accelerate Sukuk project, not only to finance national project, but also to support the projects that held by the local government. Next, please.
Ibu, you have 2 more minutes, Ibu.
Yes, please. This is the aim of KNEKS Wakaf Link Sukuk. I think first for KNEKS Wakaf Link Sukuk, we would like to develop and innovate the Islamic social finance and investment in Indonesia. And second, facilitating Wakaf to invest KNEKS Wakaf in safe financial instrument, we call it Sukuk Negara. And third, supporting the development of the Islamic financial market, especially the KNEKS Wakaf industry. And the fourth, encouraging the socialization of Islamic social funds to finance various social projects and programs. And the fifth, diversify investor and Sukuk Negara instruments. Last, encouraging the diversification of the Sharia banking business through optimizing the role of Sharia Sukuk. The next is the last slide. Hopefully, just show you the case study of KNEKS Wakaf Link Sukuk series SW1. The size is 50 billion IDR and equivalent 3.5 billion. And the format is non-tradable with akad wakalah. And this is through private placement and raising fund in 2 years. And project majority is to build the renovation and medical equipment procurement in Wakaf hospital. And the coupon that we pay for every month will be utilized to free cataract surgery for duafa at Ahmad Hospital, which is in East Java, and to buy ambulance to support this social project. Hopefully, we can continue with Q&A, and it is, I think, time to put strategies and plans into actions, because this week's and Friday, we would like to launch the next KNEKS Wakaf Link Sukuk retail. Will launch by our minister, and may Allah bless you all. Thank you. Amin ya robbal alamin. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Bu Dwi. So this Friday, Bu, yeah, the second KNEKS Wakaf. Yeah.
Yes, inshallah for retail wakaf.
Retail wakaf. So we look forward to it. Hopefully, all of us here, local or international participants, would be participating in this sukuk, inshallah. Thank you, Bu Dwi. Now we move to the next speaker. We have Ibu Sylvie Gani, who is currently Director of Financing and Investment at PT SME. She is a seasoned banker with more than 20 years of experience. Prior to PT SME, Ibu Sylvie was Head of Resources and Infrastructure at ANZ Bank, and before that she was with CIMB Niaga as Head of Mining and Energy. Of course, working in energy, apparently she obtained her chemical engineering degree from ITB, Institute Teknologi Bandung, as well as Masters in Banking and Finance from Universitas Indonesia, as well as banking courses from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. Thank you, Bu Sylvie, for participating, of course, and we welcome Bu Sylvie to the Zoom stage.
Thank you, Pak Lukman. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good afternoon, distinguished speaker and participants, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me to be here today and speak in this forum. Is there any presentation here, Pak Lukman?
Yes,
Anyone?
yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let me start my presentation today with introduction of SMI and who we are and what we do. Next, please. Next, please. So, SMI is the state-owned enterprise owned by 100% by the government of Indonesia via Ministry of Finance. SMI was established in 2009 and one of the special mission vehicles under the Ministry of Finance. Our mandate is actually to support acceleration of infrastructure development in Indonesia. So in order to perform our mandate, we have various type of product in supporting the infrastructure development, from the project development and advisory to the financing and investment. So we have a strong collaboration with our stakeholders, strategic partnership with domestic and international institutions, such as the government, ministries, SOEs, and private who are our client, and also the multilaterals, bilaterals, and funds who support us in the funding for this project. So SMI missions is actually to be the catalyst for the infrastructure development. And in order to achieve that, we aim to be the market maker by creating the coding in effect and become the ecosystem enabler that enable the infrastructure development ecosystem. We aim to be the development partner in this case, and also we aim to be a promoter for the sustainable development. So our rating for the local rating is AAA, and we have international rating of BBB, which is sovereign rating. Total asset up to now is 5.45 billion. Our sectoral coverage span from the physical infrastructure to the social infrastructure. Next, please. So we have three pillars, we usually call it, or a line of business, which actually offers or providing service from end to end, from the project development, project preparation into the project is ready to be financed, and the last is the financing. So I start with the project development. We help the company or client in the project preparation. So we have been involved in numbers of PPP project development, and also providing capacity building, not only to the private, also to the local government. We also provide the advisory services in order to help the company or client to structure the project, so it can be the bankable project. And the last end is actually in financing the project itself. So we not only our product in financing is actually span from the senior loan also to the equity. So we were able to also to invest in equity for infrastructure project. In terms of sector, we provide the public sector financing. We support and provide loan to the local government under pinjaman pemerintah daerah. We have the sustainable financing, which is for this we established the platform under the SDG Sustainable Development Goals, which is actually supporting the government to achieve the SDG. And we also have the Sharia financing. Sharia financing in SMI is still relatively new. We launched the Sharia financing just in 2017. So next, please. Our commitment and outstanding for financing up to now, up to July 20, is actually achieved $6.8 billion. With outstanding is around $4.5 billion. So in terms of outstanding by product, as typically for the infrastructure financing, which is mostly project finance, our outstanding by product predominantly is an investment loan, and if you look at here, that the Sharia financing contribution still low, which is slightly less than 5%. I think that's because the Sharia financing in SMI is just been established in 2017, but we see the more opportunity for Sharia financing here, leveraging our conventional balance sheet and conventional relationship. So next, please. So this is our financial performance as of July. If you can see here that despite this pandemic, we are still able to book the net profit positive in July. And also the asset growth in 2020 with the manageable loan portfolio. So our NPL now is still relatively low. So our NPL now is around 1%. Next, please. Next. So let me share with you the complexity of infrastructure finance. The infrastructure financing is unique and complex. Typically for the project finance, it involves many stakeholders from the public authority, market, investors, lenders, EPC contractors, and also O&M. If you look at the risk profile of the infrastructure project, during the project life cycle, so the construction period of the infrastructure project usually take about 3 to 5 years to be completed. And during those years, the project itself will not generate any revenue or cash flow. So even after the completion, the project still needs sometimes about 2-3 years to ramp up to achieve a stable revenue or stable cash flow. So if you look at this risk profile, is quite high actually for the infrastructure. So considering this and given the challenge that the complexity of infrastructure financing, in order to attract the investors, Ministry of Finance actually provide ample of fiscal support mechanism. If you look at on this slide, this is actually for the PPP project, whereby the Ministry of Finance provide the, during the bidding stage, the Ministry of Finance provide the viability gap fund, and also infrastructure guarantee to cover the political risk or policy risk. And in the financing of the construction, Ministry of Finance has SMI, which is SMI also has the subsidiary IIF, which is the specialized in infrastructure finance. And during the operation, there is a fiscal support provided by the Ministry of Finance under the availability payment, which cover the demand or market risk. So to make this project is attractive for the investors. Next, please. So the challenge here for infrastructure projects is actually to ensure a steady and sizable bankable project. So we identify some factors, key factors to make the infrastructure project to be bankable, which consists of the thorough due diligence. This is a key one. Given that the project has to be sustained and to be able to serve themselves, especially for the lenders and for the investors. Other than thorough due diligence, the proper documentation and deal structures is also important. That's on the project preparation. Robust right to payment is also one of the key, which is can attract the investors. Well-structured concession right, appropriate covenant funding structure is a key for lenders. Next, please. Another challenge for the infrastructure project that we are dealing with, and based on our experience, is I took this example from the PPP scheme projects. So during the project preparation, it's very important to have these four things: legal compliance, fiscal acceptability, feasibility, and bankability in place. So the project can attract the investors and also as well as the lenders to finance the project. So a few enhancements can be provided to enhance the project bankability. We have to ensure the affordability from project owner. For the PPP project, the project owner is usually government contracting agents. So the commitment from the government is very important in providing all the approval or the license required for the project to be developed. And also the GCA or the government contracting agency has to have fiscal capacity. The project sector maturity is also important. The sector that is infant probably still need more policy in place to support this project. Another one is related to the feasibility. Potential project risk has to be covered. Demand, construction, operation risk, which is typical for the project finance. And last but not least is actually the project sponsor guarantee is also important. So the project sponsor guarantee has to have the capacity to be able to fund and to develop the project. So next, please. So what's the role of SME then to provide the solution for those challenges? SMI is actually, with the three pillars that we have, we could offer the project development services. We help the company or client from the project preparation by prepare the feasibility study, prepare the structure of the project itself to be attractive, and mitigate all the risks that the project has. We use a blended finance because we have various of financing products, not only conventional but also Sharia. In conventional itself, we have the from senior loan to equity products. So and we also use the leveraging our partnership with the bank partner that we have, multilateral. So in synergy and collaboration with the relevant stakeholders, and also provide the capacity building activity. So in the several projects that we have, we work together with the multilaterals to provide the technical assistance for the project, such as renewable biomass, for example, which is still relatively new for Indonesia.
Apologies, Bu Sylvie, you have 2 more minutes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, thanks. Next, please. So I'll go directly to next because the time is limited. So I'll go directly to next. Next. Yeah, so this is the, if you look at here, this is it has been mentioned with the previous speaker that the Indonesia now under the framework of 2020 infrastructure, Indonesian infrastructure framework 2020 and 2024 needs about 6,400 trillion rupiah funding to fund the infrastructure development. So while the government is only provide about sorry, about the 43%, sorry, for the about the 43%, 43%, and the remaining one will be provided by the sector and SOE. So next. So how we could finance this gap is actually, I see one of the opportunities, it has had a hedge fund. The government needs the fund while actually there is an accumulation of hedge fund which can be utilized or could be utilized to support the infrastructure development. Next, please. Another opportunity that we look at is actually sukuk. Until now, the government has issued about 868 trillion of sukuk, and in terms of the corporate is also there is a growing issuance of sukuk for the private and corporate. So sukuk is could be one of the alternative fundings for the infrastructure development because it's sizable. The issuance can be in the sizable amount. Next, please. And this is my last is going to be my last presentation today. It's a contribution of the Islamic Bank. If you look at here, so put aside on the numbers of July 2020 because this pandemic years. So if you look at from the 2016 until 2019, the growth of Islamic banks is actually exceeding the growth of conventional bank. So I see that there will be a lot of more opportunity here given the needs and
Okay, thank you, Bu Sylvie, for your insightful presentation. I think we now have learned quite a bit about Indonesia's experience, both from the government sector, where Ibu Dwi has highlighted what the government has done in terms of providing financing for infrastructure, as well as the role of private sector, which is, although it is state-owned enterprise, in the forms of PT SMI, Sarana Multi-Infrastructure, dedicated financial institutions created just to support infrastructure development in the country. Now we can move to Bahrain first. Our next stop is Bahrain. We have with us Dr. Muhammad Bilal, who is currently a research economist at the General Council of Islamic Banks and Financial Institutions, or CIBAFI. CIBAFI is actually kind of institutions that where the members are Islamic financial institutions from across the globe. Before moving to Bahrain, Dr. Bilal was, he spent 9 years in Malaysia or more perhaps, working in the areas of Islamic finance research and consultancy, as well as at the same time completing his master's and PhD in Islamic finance from International Islamic University. For your information, Dr. Bilal, we have 3 IUM graduates here. Dr. Ahmad Umar, as well as also Muhammad Safri, and myself as well included in that. So without further ado, I welcome Dr. Bilal to deliver his, to share his experiences.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and a very good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Luky, for this kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank the Indonesia National Committee for Islamic Economy and Finance and all other organizers as well for inviting CIBAFI to this international webinar. And it's always good to see my, graduates from the same university where I have did my master's and PhD. So it's a pleasure meeting to all of you. Okay, before, next slide, please. Yes. Before I can go to the topic of my presentation, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce my organization, the General Council for Islamic Banks and Financial Institutions. CIBAFI is basically an international not-for-profit organization that represents the global Islamic financial services industry. And our objective is to provide our support to industry through various initiatives and activities. Currently, we have 134 members, mostly Islamic banks from 34 different jurisdictions. And it's important to mention that among these members, we have around like 8 to 10 Islamic investment banks as well. For example, Jihan Bank for Islamic Investment and Finance from Iraq, and Financial Investment Bank from Sudan. Next slide, please. At CIBAFI, we have basically 3 strategic objectives that reflect our strategic direction. The first one is advocacy of Islamic finance, values, and related policies and regulations. Under this, we are basically providing comments to regulators on their exposure draft of standards, for example, Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, IFSP, IFE. Beside that, CIBAFI is also providing comments to international organizations on their documents that are, of course, relevant to Islamic finance, such as the World Bank or Financial Stability Board, IMF, and B20. And to create awareness, which is, of course, very important for Islamic finance industry, and to share information, CIBAFI is also organizing different events throughout the year. For example, we have global forums, roundtable meetings, and international seminars and knowledge sharing sessions. And as everybody knows, because of this COVID-19 situation, we have shifted all our activities, just like this webinar, online. So under research and innovation, if I can highlight, we are issuing various periodic publications that are mainly based on questionnaire surveys, where we collect primary data from our member banks from different regions. For instance, Global Islamic Bankers Survey, this is our flagship annual publication in which we cover most trending or relevant topics to the Islamic finance industry. And recently we have published our Global Islamic Bankers Survey, which is available on our website. Other than that, we have joint publication with World Bank on corporate governance. We have our regular in focus sessions and publications, and we have CIBAFI briefings. Next, please. This one, which we can see here on the slide, is one of the examples of CIBAFI briefings. And as we can see the title, it is directly relevant to today's topic. In this briefing, I want to share some of the highlights. We have identified the contemporary challenges of infrastructure financing and how Islamic finance offers a viable solution to fill in the infrastructure financing gaps in the Muslim countries, which these gaps are already highlighted by our keynote speakers and some of the participants. So it has also discussed the policy roles of Islamic finance, financial institutions in infrastructure development, and the complementary, I would say like the compatibility of Islamic finance instruments or contracts, as we say, in this regard. And for this, we have conducted a survey with our member Islamic banks that also includes Islamic investment banks to take their opinion on the subject. And lastly, some policy recommendations for governments, regulators, and Islamic financial institutions. And for our audience, interest, this briefing is accessible through our website. Next, please. Generally speaking, the public infrastructure projects in GCC are mostly financed by the government through their development funds. For example, when they are going to develop highways or railway projects, seaports, or say airports. However, we have many examples where Islamic investment banks are financing infrastructure projects in the private sector, mostly real estate. For instance, in Bahrain, our capital bank, which is Sharia compliant investment bank here in Bahrain, has financed Bahrain Bay project with an estimated value of 2.5 billion US dollars. Another project is the Muharrak project, which was financed by Kuwait Finance House, along with some private investors with an estimated value of 3.2 billion US dollars. And in many cases, Islamic investment banks for Middle East and MENA region are also financing infrastructure projects outside the Middle East, like in Asia and Africa region. If I can share an example for Middle East, there were two Islamic investment banks, one Al-Raji Banking and Investment Corporation from Saudi Arabia, and ISEG Islamic Investment Bank from UAE. These two banks combined, they have financed 92 million US dollars bridge financing facility that was based on Istisna contract. And the financing was given to the Hub River Power Project in Pakistan, which is in Asia, to purchase and install power turbine for the project. Next, please. Now, looking at the challenges, though we know that there are growing demand of infrastructure projects in the Middle East, like in power sector, especially green energy, water, transport, and health sector. But we see there are some barriers also that are hindering the flow of global and regional liquidity into Middle Eastern market and the MENA region. And I would say that even for MENA region, because the situation is much different. International finance, if we see, are also looking to gain exposure to infrastructure sectors for obvious reason. They are looking for a stable source of long-term income. But there are some challenges that Islamic financial institutions are facing in this region and MENA also. For example, liquidity limits. I think that limited funds are available to invest in large and long-scale infrastructure project can be felt almost throughout the region. Like when we talk about projects which are over $1 billion US mark, there's very limited interest we see at the moment. And of course, with the addition of COVID-19, I think the situation is not going to improve in near future. But other factors are also at play, like money going into real estate market, which is a very traditional way of investing by investment bank in Middle East and MENA region, and government securities such as treasury bills. Under regulatory restriction, if you see, capital adequacy requirement is another challenge for Islamic financial institutions when we consider their greater exposure to to investment in infrastructure sector. Yeah. Although traditionally Islamic investment banks in MENA region have high capital levels, but with the minimum capital adequacy ratio, which is required in Basel III, has constrained to some extent, if not much, the availability of financing for infrastructure projects. Public procurement is another challenge, of course, faced by Islamic investment bank in some of the Middle Eastern countries, where we see the procurement framework and process by the government for infrastructure projects are not that transparent and competitive. And also in some cases, we have seen that they do not allow for multiple parties to bid for infrastructure projects. Political and security risk are also big challenges for infrastructure project financing, and as well as for project operations, because it does not allow the project to continue with the same speed. As we know, in case of political turmoil or where we have a law and order situation in the country, it's very hard to complete a long-term project, which is a large-scale infrastructure project. Some examples of regional countries we can see from, for instance, Yemen, Syria, and Egypt, where we have very limited or no infrastructure financing by Islamic investment banks. Moving forward, please next slide. We discussed that what are the factors that can foster Islamic investment banks' participation in future infrastructure projects. One important factor is strategies and policies by the government. If we see the case studies from developed countries, we can find that development of appropriate strategies and policies by the government can play a very crucial or vital role to promote investment banks to participate in infrastructure projects. National Infrastructure Commission in the UK is one good example, which we can share here, that develop long-term strategies to meet countries' infrastructure needs. So it is also recommended that the government should develop long-term strategies, and then they can divide those strategies into medium and short-term plan that can specify the needs of infrastructure development. Now, under legal and regulatory framework, one important factor is sector-specific laws. Given the uniqueness of different infrastructure sectors, for instance, there may be a need for laws and regulations to cater the specific features of each sector. Like if you talk about infrastructure sector, for example, we have seen that in Nigeria, the government has a set of acts for different infrastructure sectors, like in the Federal Highway Act and Nigerian Port Authority. And in Saudi Arabia, we have Electricity and Cogeneration Regulatory Authority. And if we look at Malaysia, they have Energy Commission to regulate the power and gas sectors for the infrastructure development.
Dr. Bilal, remaining 2 minutes for you.
Sure. Thank you. The second factor is of public procurement rules. I think to facilitate Islamic investment banks, the government can develop a procurement framework and processes that are more open and competitive. And it should also allow for multiple parties to bid for infrastructure projects. Third is a strong PPP framework, which is very important to facilitate investment by Islamic investment banks. The importance of PPP has already mentioned by one of our speakers. So looking at the MENA region, in Saudi Arabia specifically, we have the National Center for Privatization and PPP. Another example is from Nigeria, where the Infrastructure Regulatory Commission has regulatory govern PPP projects. The same goes for Indonesia, where they have regulations to see the PPP framework. And lastly, as a supporting service, the government can provide the public financial support to improve viability of infrastructure projects. And the government can also establish institutions that can provide guarantees to Islamic investment banks for infrastructure projects. For example, DNB from Malaysia that provides financial guarantees and insurances for sukuk issuance to Malaysian companies. So this, with the help of the supporting services, we can say that it can assist or help Islamic investment banks to participate in the future infrastructure projects in their countries. Since I'm running out of time, so I think I will end my presentation at this point. And of course, I'm looking forward to other presentations and Q&A session. Thank you for organizers to giving us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bilal. And the report is available on the website, yeah?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we will have, we'll take benefits of the reports that has been prepared by Safri and on the overview of Islamic infrastructure financing. Right, now we can move to the next speaker, which is Dr. Ahmad Omar Fahad, who is also based in Bahrain, but working with the Sierra Investment Bank. He is currently the head of Sharia compliance at Sierra. But before that, he was based in Malaysia and working as Sharia audit, head of Sharia audit at Kuwait Finance House in Malaysia. And then he moved to Bahrain for the same bank before moving to Sierra. He obtained his bachelor's degree in law, LLB, as well as MCL, and also PhD from International Islamic University, Ahmad Ibrahim College of Laws. So he is, of course, a Sharia, we could say he's Sharia scholar. And we do need this perspective, Sharia perspective, to understand how Islamic investment banking can operate within Sharia frameworks globally as well as in local context. Now I will invite Dr. Ahmad to deliver his presentation. We still can't hear you, Dr. Ahmad.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, yeah, yes.
Okay, maybe this is better. Thank you very much. I really appreciate, and I would like to thank the organizing committee for the invitation, though it came a bit late. Never mind. I'm also happy to meet my university mates, and I'm glad to be part of this conference. And first of all, I would like to congratulate the organizing committee for choosing this important topic. And shall we share the slides, or we should? Or we don't have it available at the moment. Yeah. Okay, no problem. I think it's very small to see. As we all know that every country needs an infrastructure development for sustainable economic and social well-being. So the topic is very important, but from my perspective, I will not be going into specifics and details. I will be addressing general challenges or mismatches between the perception or the expectation from the Islamic investment banks and the reality on the ground. So I won't be talking on Sharia issues per se, but I'll be addressing specific issues from bankers and practitioners' perspectives vis-a-vis the expectations from Islamic banks and Islamic institutions, right? So we all know that this choice of this topic is very crucial, as everyone knows how important it is. Most of the OIC countries, as we all know, that they have potential economic potentials, but due to lack of infrastructure and other capacities, they cannot take advantage of those resources. If we take one example, for example, you may have farmers in any of the OIC countries, being in Asia or in Africa, where those farmers maybe are producing agricultural products which is needed, but due to lack of infrastructure development in those OIC countries, it is difficult for those farmers to take advantage of those resources that they have, which sometimes, in some cases, lead them to abandon this production, and as a result, those farmers will remain poor. So it's important that we highlight the infrastructure development in this session and also in other sessions, and maybe we go deeper into it, right? If I take one example, I'm from Djibouti. If I were to travel, if I want to travel from Djibouti to one of our neighboring countries, the air transportation cost is more expensive than traveling, let's say, to Bahrain or to Turkey or to another outside countries. That's because those countries are lacking the required or needed infrastructure facilities in place. Next. So as I said, I'll be talking from practitioner's perspective. So and the general challenges from outsider perspective, we expect from Islamic banks, being at the retail or investment, among other objectives, that it should be working or should be helping in achieving the socio-economic objectives or well-being of Islamic society, or the Ummah as we call it. In terms of their product and services, because that's one of the questions we'll ask, from regulators' perspective here in Bahrain, Islamic investment banks may undertake transactions without restriction when dealing with the government of Bahrain or its agencies. And for the corporate sector, subject to whatever limitations the regulatory authority may impose, any of the Islamic financing or investment products could be utilized to offer to the clients. Next. Again, subject to whatever parameters the respective regulatory authority may require to be complied with, Islamic investment banks could deal or could invest in any area that the conventional counterparts could invest. The only difference is that Islamic investment banks should comply with Sharia principles when it comes to the permissibility of the invested activities, or economic activities, as well as the process of doing the investment and also achieving the investment goals. These are some of the examples where Islamic investment banks could do. I don't have to go into details because I've seen some examples in the previous presentations. Next. In investing the activities listed above, the suitable Islamic banking products will be used, and the relevant banking personnel or those in charge of the product development or client relationship managers or investment personnel will determine, together with the potential clients, what is the best product that serves their purpose or can help them to achieve the objectives better. It's to be highlighted that choosing appropriate product is not an easy thing, because you require the structuring of those products to be compliant with the Sharia principles, with the relevant applicable rules and regulations, and from financial, from risk, so many aspects. So structuring takes a lot of time. Approvals also take a long time, because you got to get the approval from all the stakeholders, Sharia board, legal, risk, so on and so forth, as well as the documentation process could be challenging and time-consuming. But if the right experts are in place, those challenges could be overcome. So if the Islamic Investment Bank has the financial ability and the experts in those specific fields, it will be easy to manage those challenges and to allocate to choose what are the appropriate or suitable products, Islamic banking product, or to propose infrastructure projects. Next. Now, coming back to the socio-economic objectives which Islamic banks should be working to realize, the question is, are the socio-economic objectives a priority for bankers and as well as shareholders' perspective vis-a-vis Sharia board and other stakeholders? Because this is where the mismatch of expectation and reality normally comes from. Okay, the answer to that, which one will be prioritized, either socioeconomic goals or whether or not those socioeconomics are priority or not, will depends on who actually you discuss those questions with. Some of the Sharia boards will insist and will always talk about to prioritize the well-being of socioeconomic activities and to prioritize over private profits and other investment, benefits, right? And sometimes general perception of the society or public sometimes will be in line with some of those expectations, in which they do expect Islamic banks to be solely focusing and working on the socio-economic of the Ummah, okay? But if you ask the bankers or the practitioners whether or not they're thinking the same way or not, will remain to be seen, right? We all know that Islamic banks, whether retail or investment, they are not charitable institutions. They are profit-making institutions as well. So those people who are in charge with the bank, they do have a KPI to be met. And at the end of next please, at the end of the financial year, they will be assessed based on the performance or financial performance of those institutions. So to them, if you ask them which one you will prioritize, the socio-economic objectives or the profit and economic benefit of the institution, probably they will have another opinion, right?
Dr. Berhad, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, that's so fast. I was counting. I only have 10 minutes. I have 15 minutes in according to my watch. No problem. I'll go very fast. From bankers' perspective, apart from the Sharia compliance, the priorities is also to whether or not to maximize the profit or the benefit. Again, we'll have to go back to the same questions. So they will have to, I think you can read it because time is it's catching me up. The first priority is to preserve and protect the equity and other funds invested with and in those institutions. Next, please. So that's what they expect, right? Keeping in mind with the above primary responsibilities, in reality, should the bankers prioritize investing in investment targets that may have a higher return, but certainly with higher risk, or investment targets with lower return with a low risk? Next. Now, the next question is which investment, whether or not the investment environment in the OIC countries will provide an economic or investment environment which encourages those bankers to invest in those areas, because that's some of the mismatch. Because in my experience, most of the bankers, they like to invest in the well-developed markets, mainly in the West and some developed OIC members. Next. So if you discuss with them, why are you not prioritizing those communities that need investment in the other OIC countries? They will have an argument saying that, look, there are certain discouraging factors which prevent us from investing in those markets. One of it because those who are running the institutions are all educated based on the conventional investment education institutions. And then next, so what are those discouraging factors very quickly? Number one, those developed markets, the data that are necessary to make investment decisions are available and accessible, right? Whereas in the rest of OIC countries, those data are not available and they are not accessible. Number two, I think the previous presenter also, Dr. Bilal, has mentioned that stability is always a concern for the decision makers or investment decision makers when they're considering or contemplating investing in those areas. And number three, the legal infrastructure in those underdeveloped countries, mainly in the OIC, are either compromised or they are not satisfactorily sophisticated enough to handle potential dispute involving major investment or infrastructure investment projects. Next, last two slides and I will finish. Number four, corruption is rampant in most of the developing countries, unfortunately. Some of the OIC members are part of it. Number five, accessibility. Okay, and as already mentioned in the first example. And number six, some other economic issues that that exist on the ground in those countries. Last slide, please. Way forward, I think it doesn't mean that we have to give up because those challenges are there, but we have to work very hard to overcome those obstacles. And to do that, we need political will from the leaders of the OIC countries, as well as collective action involving the government, the private sector, and also having qualified professionals to run those institutions, because sometimes management are some of the reasons why those institutions sometimes fail. Right? So if there are any other questions, I will talk about later. Thank you very much. And I think I'll conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. This, of course, I mean, you highlighted about the discouraging factors where a lot of Islamic investment bank shy away from really Sharia-based products, yeah? Because of this discouraging factors, and also underline that we also need to improve legal infrastructure in order to build a strong physical infrastructure, which is an irony. Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. Now, from Manama Bay or Manabasuk, we'll move to Kuala Lumpur now. Now we have with us, of course, Muhammad Safri, who is let me just have my notes, who is Senior Managing Director as well as Deputy CEO of CIMB Islamic. Before he has spent quite some time with the CIMB Islamics, primarily as investment banker, investment banking activities. He obtained his Bachelor in Accounting from IAEI as well as MBA from Maastricht School of Management in the Netherlands. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Sheikh Muhammad Safri to share CIMB's experiences, especially in developing some state-of-the-art investment products, and also in underwriting some key or marquee global sukuk, for instance. So, Sheikh Safri, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Dr. Lukian and the team. My name is Muhammad Safri Shaulhamid. Thank you so much for the kind introduction on a Wednesday afternoon from all of us in Kuala Lumpur and Jakarta. And I'm sure it's still quite close to lunchtime in Manama and some other parts of GCC. So once again, on behalf of CIMB, let me start by expressing my appreciation to the organizer for inviting me and CIMB to be part of this distinguished panel. Obviously, we've heard from the distinguished Dr. Luky and Gudui and the distinguished panelists earlier. So it's good when I'm one of the last ones to come on board, because I'm going to be able to pick up on all the points that has been presented by the other distinguished panelists. So I think, and the bad thing is most of my points have been taken by the other panelists. So I'm just going to be spending about 5 minutes as opposed to 15 minutes. And anyway, joke aside, so over the next 10 to 15 minutes, my slides there for everyone's benefit, I'll be basically presenting on the contribution of Islamic investment banks and Islamic finance as a whole towards the development of the infrastructure sector in Malaysia, particularly, and obviously Malaysia has been the bread and butter where Islamic investment banks are concerned. A lot of things started in this part of the world, but obviously the journey that Malaysia has taken has been a very, I would say, very colorful journey, for the lack of a better word. There's just so many challenges that we had to endure, so many issues that we had to face. So the journey is still ongoing. We are probably not even half of our journey. So I think what I'll do, I'll just summarize in terms of the issues, the challenges, the success stories that we have endured over the last 2 decades or so. But before we begin, can I just get the organizer to just flip the slide? There you go. Let me begin by, thank you so much. Let me begin by going back to the early days, right? Obviously, we have to start by going back to where we began. And we look at Malaysia, for example, the first sukuk issued in Malaysia was done by a subsidiary of Shell, the oil and gas giant, back in 1990. But the sukuk market, right? Because everybody is talking about the investment bank per se. So as an investment bank, we do not lend out monies. So we have to arrange or manage, transactions, be it in the form of sukuk or be it in the form of equities. So just staying with the sukuk market, where it all began in Malaysia and in Islamic finance as within Islamic finance context as a whole, the real growth in the sukuk market only started in the new millennium, right? Prior to the new millennium, the one I would say notable infrastructure sukuk that was done in Malaysia was for the construction of the Kuala Lumpur International Airport back in 1996. But that was it. There were only a handful of issuances prior to the year 2000. But the year 2000 was when it all changed. The government realized that it had to do something about this and came up with this, what we call a comprehensive, if you look at the slide, in the year 2000, a comprehensive Islamic capital market master plan and Islamic capital market guidelines. If you ask me, this was probably one of the most important developments in Islamic finance in Malaysia, where if I can just jump straight to the next slide, and I'll come back to the this slide. One of the objectives of CIMB, or Capital Market Master Plan 1, which ran from the year 2000 until the year 2010, or rather 2001 and to the year 2010, is to establish Malaysia as an international Islamic capital market center. So this echoes with the topic for today's discussion, right? Basically, we are focusing on the Islamic investment banks. So Islamic investment banks and Islamic capital market basically do rhyme. So if I can just go back to the earlier slide. Yeah, so the year 2004, we saw the introduction of the guidelines on issuance of Islamic securities by the Securities Commission of Malaysia. So that was the first sukuk guidelines anywhere in the world. So that sukuk guideline basically kind of helped everyone in terms of the approach, in terms of the practice, in terms of how an investment bank should be structuring a sukuk or an Islamic securities for its particular client and marketing it, obtaining a Sharia board approval, and before we can actually go to the Securities Commission of Malaysia for an approval, and then we can launch that particular sukuk. So that the early part of the millennium was when the growth of the sukuk market in Malaysia actually took off. And what kind of help the development of the sukuk market in Malaysia was in 2005 and 2007, where the government, through the tax office in 2005, came up with this tax legislation providing exemptions for banking and Islamic. So I mentioned banking and Islamic securities for certain Islamic structures. In this case, for example, we include the murabaha or the inah base in Malaysia, then purchase and lease of assets, which is based on ijarah. And so that kind of provide that level playing field between Islamic and conventional in Malaysia. Because for the longest time prior to this 2005, Islamic was the stepson or the stepdaughter, right, compared to its conventional banking counterparts. So that kind of legislation provided by the government changed the entire scheme of things in Malaysia. And because of this important development in Malaysia in 2005, everything kind of shifted to Islamic finance. So in 2007, for the first time, the government of Malaysia introduced this stamp duty exemption. This is something which is very unique and controversial I would say controversial because there's been a lot of debates about this introduction of stamp duty exemption on investing and trading of sukuk, and coupled with the tax deduction on expenses incurred in the issuance of Islamic private debt securities. So this was a continuation of what happened in 2005. The government of Malaysia started with 3-4 Islamic principles, and then they continued with another principles in Musyarakah back in 2007, and then they continued with another 2 more principles of Mudarabah and Istisna in from the year 2010 until the year 2015. So obviously the country of Malaysia had its own agenda to develop Islamic finance, and because Islamic finance is the younger kid on the block, so they had to start by giving some incentives to the market. And because of that, from the year 2005, I would say onwards, everyone that wanted to tap the fixed income market would opt for sukuk. They will just want to do Islamic. Even a non-Islamic name, a non-Islamic issuer that cannot do Islamic because they are involved in gambling activities, for example, they have a casino somewhere in some part of Malaysia, without naming the state, in Malaysia, for example, they came to CIMB, they said, I want to do sukuk. I do not want to do conventional bonds. Simply because of these tax incentives, and to add to that, from 2005 onwards, because of all this flurry of incentives that the government introduced, the pricing, which is the single most important criterion for most of the CEOs, CFOs, finance directors, and all the important key decision makers of any companies, not only Malaysia, but anywhere in the world, the pricing for the sukuk became a lot cheaper than the pricing for the conventional bonds. So that started from the year 2005 onwards. So because the pricing is cheaper, because there are a lot of tax incentives, that was the reason why the sukuk market in Malaysia basically took off. It really exploded from then until now. So I'm just going to skip the other part because I've got quite a number more slides. Can we just go to the next slide? Or rather the next slide, because I already covered this slide. So this slide is just to basically share what has happened in during the first CMP, the first capital market plan from the year 2001 until the year 2010, right? From about 300 billion ringgit, which is about $70 billion, the market, the Islamic capital market, grew by 3 times to about 1 billion ringgit, or about $230 billion over that 10-year period. So next slide. Yeah. So when we completed the Capital Market Master Plan 1, we saw the growth in the sukuk market. The sukuk market really took off. The sukuk market became the darling of Islamic finance, not only in Malaysia, but also globally. So the government came up with this Capital Market Master Plan 2 from the year 2011 until the year 2020. So this is an ongoing CMP by the government of Malaysia. So one of the thrusts of the CMP 2 is to strengthen the country's position as a global ICM hub, Islamic Capital Market Hub. So under this, so if I were to basically connect the dot between this trust and the topic for today, right, the role of Islamic investment banks in the development of the infrastructure and development sector, when we look at ICM, the sukuk market in Malaysia, if I can just go to the next slides, the next few slides. So these are some of the success stories that we have seen in the ringgit space, or in the Malaysian ringgit space. We have financed many. In fact, every single independent power plant company in Malaysia has been funded Islamically. Every single water treatment plant in Malaysia has been financed Islamically. The airport, as I said earlier, was financed Islamically. The MRT, the monorail, has been financed Islamically. And in fact, I can't think of any infrastructure development in Malaysia that has not been financed Islamically. In fact, if they had been done conventionally, it would raise eyebrows now in Malaysia. So next slide. Yeah, so I've just mentioned about the plus, for example, the one on the left-hand side of the slide. the plus sukuk that we did back in 2012, if I recall correctly, we did it on the 27th of December 2012. That was a day or two after Christmas. I mean, everybody was celebrating Christmas and Boxing Day in some parts of the world. We closed at 33 billion ringgit, which is about 11 billion US dollar sukuk. So, and the reason why we were able to close an 11 billion US dollar, yeah, not ringgit, sukuk for plus was because it was done Islamically. It was done under a sukuk format. So because we were able to do it under a sukuk format, we were able to attract or sell the sukuk to both the Islamic accounts as well as the conventional accounts. Hence, the widening of the investor base took place and we were able to close the deal successfully. So next slide, please. So what has been the challenges? Everything from our point of view, I mean, nothing is perfect. So nothing is rosy, right? We have encountered so many issues. I mean, these 3 bullets are just some of the issues that we've encountered. These are not even all the issues that we've encountered. Number one, for example, before we get to the first bullet, from my own experience, lack of understanding, lack of awareness amongst the market participants, right? Even in Malaysia, right? When I think Dr. Ahmad, you were based in Kuala Lumpur before, right? With KFH, if I recall correctly, you know, right? Even in Malaysia, we are still struggling to sell Islamic finance to the market, from the retail market to the commercial banking, corporate banking, and even investment banking markets. So we had to throw in all these incentives, all the goodie bags, all the incentives, right, had to be thrown in to entice people, to lure people to subscribe to Islamic finance. So these are some of the challenges that we face, right? I mean, I think to me, this is the most critical challenge that we face in trying to do Islamic finance, even in Malaysia, let alone outside Malaysia. The other issue, obviously, we have the single customer exposure limit, and this is applicable if you were to do an IPP, power plant financing, for example, where the off-taker is solely the state-owned utility company. Like in Malaysia, we have the Tenaga Nasional Berhad. In Indonesia, I believe it's was it the
PLN?
PLN, yes, PLN, right? Perusahaan Listrik Negara. So if the off-takers were PLN or Tenaga Nasional, so for most of the funds, right, they can only invest X% of their funds into an issuance which is being backed that has Tenaga Nasional or PLN as an off-taker. So this is just one example. And then when it comes to all this infrastructure and development projects, the gestation period is very long, right? You need 3-4 years just to construct a plant, just to construct a treatment plant, for example, in the case of a water treatment plant. After that, you need to have that commencement, right, done. And that commencement can only be done when you already obtain the approvals from the relevant parties. Then you start business. When you start business, there's a possibility that there could be hiccups here and there, right? So there are a lot of issues. And not to mention all the other issues such as political risk, market risk, and so on and so forth, right? So, and because of that, when they come to us, the investment banks, they will tell us, we need 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion ringgit or US dollar. And for that, we can only pay after 20 years, 30 years. So this is just one of the journeys that we had to endure. Back in 2003, when I first did the first istisna, project finance sukuk for a power plant company, the tenure was just 5 years, right? Because we wanted to test the market. People were not so confident that we could do this Islamically. From 5 years, it became 7 years. Then we extended it to 10 years. Then we extended it to 15 years. Then 20 years. Then 30 years. Now 50 years, right? So we are able to do a 50-year sukuk in this part of the world. And even for the government of Indonesia, we have done, you know, a very long tenet sukuk in the global space. So this is just, again, a journey that we have to go through. The other issue is hedging. Again, this is a very, very important and highly controversial issue when it comes to hedging. So if we were to do a sukuk or a financing, syndicated financing, for example, some of the issuers would like to hedge their positions. So in Malaysia or in other parts of the world, obviously we have these offerings, but this is not applicable globally across the board. And that's something that we probably have to address as we move along in this journey. Legal issues, as you know, every country, the sovereignty of the country, the governing laws for each of the countries are different. Indonesia is obviously, in Malaysia is based on common law. Indonesia is not based on common law. Some other parts of GCC are based on their own basically laws. So because of that, the legal issues, the tax interpretations and jurisdictions vary from one country to the other. This is also a massive issue that I should have actually put that in. The tax issue is a big issue, right? It could be a deal breaker in some other parts of the world, but again, this is a journey that we have to endure. We are not, as I said earlier, we are not even halfway down the road, right, in trying to do Islamic banking, even in terms of the standardization of the documentation, right? Those days, people were talking about the fact that, oh, the sukuk documents are not standardized. Even the financing market is not standardized. The hedging instruments, we used to follow ISDA, and then we came up with this IGMA. Only recently, we followed the IFM Tahawud Master Agreement, for example. But the Tahawud Master Agreement is still being cooked, is still being debated in some parts of the world, right? So these are the issues that we are facing. The standardization is still an issue basically in Islamic finance. Next slide, which happens to be my last slide.
You have about less than 2 minutes.
What are the Islamic financing schemes that are commonly used in infrastructure financing in Malaysia? Obviously, Malaysia commodity murabaha is it's an acceptable principle in Malaysia. So we do sukuk based on commodity murabaha. Financing, it's a given. It's based on commodity murabaha. When it comes to Islamic financing in Malaysia, as in Islamic loans, it's all commodity murabaha now. When it comes to sukuk, these are some of the popular structures in Malaysia. The only so-called outlier amongst these 5 principles are the wakalah sukuk structure, where the government of Malaysia still provides an incentive. The last standing structure that is still preferred by the government in terms of providing tax incentives is wakalah. So we are still seeing an interest in terms of doing the wakalah structure, but of course the easiest structure amongst these 5 structures would be the murabaha structure. Before I end, Dr. Luky, I just want to take an opportunity to also, since we are talking about investment bank, to look at the other side of the coin. We've been focusing on the sukuk market. There's also an equity market that investment banks in Malaysia are now slowly going into, right? Into that turf where, for example, on the IPO side, on the Islamic IPOs, because the Securities Commission of Malaysia came up with these Sharia compliant methodologies in ascertaining whether a particular company is Sharia compliant or not before they go for a listing on the exchange, on the Bursa Efek or Bursa Malaysia. For CIMB Investment Bank, for example, we do advise companies. They will come to CIMB, we will then become their Sharia advisors. We will run their numbers, their balance sheet, for example, and look to see whether their quantitative numbers meet the SC the Securities Commission requirements, as well as their qualitative requirements. For example, their business activities are in compliance with the Sharia requirements. That is on the primary markets. Even on the secondary markets, when we look at the pref shares, the preference shares, the warrants, the right issues, those are also the instruments that we are now looking at doing them Islamically, converting them into an Islamic format, so that we are able to basically do the equity part end to end. So with that, I'll take a pause, and I'm happy to take some of the questions from the floor.
Thank you, Safri. This is brilliant presentations, and I underline actually a very important point. In Malaysia, you have very strong pipelines of project, either on the fixed income as well as equity sides. Primarily because the government has provided a series of incentives, primarily fiscal, which I think in Indonesia we do hope that this kind of incentive would someday be available for either the supply side as well as on demand side of the transactions, inshallah. Okay, before we start our Q&A sessions, I would like to, of course, thanks all the members of the panels, all of the speakers who have enlightened us, the layman in the investment banking, banking space, some insight as well as some new knowledge on this, the products, the mechanisms, the legal requirements, and as well as what potential it has and what it can offer in the future. Now, I would like to remind the participants to please type in your questions in the chat box, because we do have 5 goodies, five giveaways actually from PT SMI. But I also have 2 questions for the audience, the member of audience. Please type in the answers, and the fastest one will receive the giveaway. Yeah. So the first question for the audience. The first one is, name 2 members of Sharia supervisory boards of PT SMI. Please type complete name of. Jadi sebutkan 2 anggota DPS dari PT SMI. That's the first question. Second question, when was the first ISEF was conducted and in which city? Give the year, sebutkan tahun dan di mana ISEF pertama dilaksanakan. Okay. Now, before we entertain and answer all the questions, I would like to invite. We have Pak Zaki Mansur, Head of Global Partnership and Resource Mobilizations from Islamic Development Bank, who is based in Jeddah and currently in Jeddah, perhaps to give us some comments, because KNEKS and IDB also looking into exploring the possibility of establishing some form of Islamic investment bank in Indonesia. Pak Zaki, you have about 3 to 4 minutes, Pak.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Lukian, and good morning, everyone. My name is Zaki Mansur. I'm currently heading the Global Partnership Resource Mobilization Department at the bank. Basically, we are the partnerships department of the bank, and also runs the syndication and also the sovereign wealth funds desk. Congratulations to ISEF, Bank Indonesia, Ministry of Finance, IAEI, and especially KNEKS, which has basically graciously held this event. Just a couple of questions. Number one is that the importance of pipeline generation would be of enormous importance, because as stipulated by Ministry of Finance today, and also Bu Silvi, there has been a lot of developments lately on providing the pipeline for the Islamic Investment Bank, and that this will probably create the buzz, or create the momentum for foreign investors, especially the sovereign wealth funds and the pension funds. We did create a sovereign wealth fund forum in 2017 with PT-SMI, and there was enormous amount of interest there. Now the question is whether the establishment of IIB would be in conjunction with the pipeline that has been developed, since the pipeline will basically drive most of the interest. And if you want to use the end in mind, basically the interest of the investors and the foreign pension funds would be an utmost important to consider. This is number one. Number two is we would like to see whether there would be an integration of the market of infrastructure project in Malaysia and Indonesia, because the ratings of the 2 countries are converging, and whether there would be some collaboration between the banks, investment banks in Malaysia and Indonesia at the end of the day, to form that ASEAN infrastructure, the investment side. I think without further ado, there are many aspects that we probably would like to see on the taxation side. On the experience of Malaysia has been a proof that step-by-step approach on providing that platform for investors to take advantage of some of the regulatory impediments to be minimized would need to be addressed. And we hope that the IIB could be realized in the near future. And we wish all the best of luck to the team that will be establishing this. And we hope that the integration also with the Bahrain and UAE and Kuwaiti investors would be of permanent requirement. The role of CBAFI would be adding value to the robustness of the pipeline. Thank you very much, Pak Lukian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Zaki. I think you have 3 questions and comments as well. The pipelines, the integration with the other within ASEAN context or OIC, SBAFI context, as well as the regulatory and tax incentive. So I'll put that first, noted that first, because we have other questions to the panel. No, the second questions to the panel is on innovation and governance as well as risk mitigation. How about ESG in Sharia finance? This is from Pak Dadang from PTSMI. So the ESG in Sharia finance, do we have good examples in implementations of environmental and social safeguards for infrastructure projects? So these 4 questions, I will go first perhaps to perhaps Safri, and then we go to, we go backward this time if you prefer.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think ESG and Islamic finance are synonymous. And so from our point of view, we are extremely gung-ho about incorporating the ESG basically component into our financing activities. As you know, we are running the sustainability climate conference event from CIMB's point of view, and we have also committed a 1 billion ringgit limit to finance all these ESG SRI companies. So, and we have also established our own group sustainability department to look at, to endorse all the financing that has been approved by the credit committee. So we need to make sure that that financing, although those financing activities have been approved, have been endorsed, so from the credit point perspective and from the from the P&L perspective, but they also have to be endorsed by our group sustainability committee as well. So those are just some of the things that we do, and there will be a lot more activities that we are going to be embarking on where ESG is concerned. So for example, when one talks about the role of investment banks, here we are looking at incorporating wakaf, for example, into some of the innovative structures that we are going to be showing to our clients, where the sukuk will have an element of waqf or awqaf, and we know for a fact, everyone knows that wakaf is one of the components of SRI as a whole, and so that's something, or ESG as a whole, so that's something that we are looking at, and we're also trying to see whether we can connect the dots between some of the activities or projects that are ESG centric, combine them with wakaf, and try to see whether we can also offer them to the retail investors. So we're trying to close the loops on all the fronts, and that's a work in progress for all of us. So stay tuned on that front.
On the integration within Indonesian and Malaysian IB?
Yes, I think we welcome that.
Any comments?
We would, do you want me to take that question, Mark?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. So I think from our point of view, we would welcome that. We've been speaking about integrating the Indonesian and the Malaysian banks. We believe that there are a lot of value adds that could be generated by having the two markets integrated, especially when it comes to infrastructure development initiative. We know for a fact Indonesia has got a lot of infrastructure development projects that are going to be coming on stream. In Malaysia, though, the numbers are nothing compared to Indonesia, but there's nothing stopping the two banks or the two countries to integrate the strength, the muscle between the two countries, and that is also a precursor to this international Islamic investment bank agenda. I mean, when one talks about the international Islamic investment bank agenda, to to be headquartered in Jakarta. Obviously, in the role of Indonesia and Malaysia cannot be denied when it comes to Islamic finance. So I think it's important for both the Indonesian as well as the Malaysian banks to work together, right, in order to realize this IIIB agenda that is going to be mooted by IDB, for example.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Omar, any comments on the question from Zaki as well as from Dadang?
You mean the one on ESG?
Yes, okay. ESG, fine.
Environmental and social governance, that's what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think that's the way going forward, because that's the area which everyone's talking about. Talking about green, the social responsible investment, so on and so forth. And if you look Islamically, this is what we're supposed to do, because we are the vice children of Earth. So we are responsible on the maintenance of the well-being of the Mother Earth that we live in. So it's important, and there's a big but there. We have a lot to do to go on that front. The first is the awareness, as our brother has highlighted. Our mindset to get used to with the existing investment methodology where nobody cares about the social and environment aspects. But now we need to, the investors, the participants, and even the legislators, okay, to be aware of that objective of CFG objective. So if we have the right legal infrastructure to regulate those ESG investments and what are the limitations, I think that will be great. And from Islamic perspective, we should encourage that CSG initiative to prosper within OIC and also beyond.
Okay, well, thank you. Now, Dr. Bilal, any comments?
Yes, I think that CIMB as a leading voice in the Islamic finance industry, we believe that there is a huge potential in infrastructure financing in Islamic banking sector, especially when it comes to ESG or sustainable finance. And as I've also mentioned before, that under this first strategic objective of CIMB, Advocacy of Islamic Finance Values, we are trying to create awareness among investors and other Islamic finance stakeholders, and trying to encourage them to invest in infrastructure financing, as I have shown that the role of Islamic finance in infrastructure financing over briefing, which you can also access through our website. So this is what we are trying to do to create more awareness and to encourage Islamic finance stakeholders to take part in this infrastructure financing. And also on sustainability, we truly believe that it is naturally aligned to Maqasid the Sharia, or objective of Islamic finance. So that's how, and we have also tried to look into this green sukuk. We are trying to encourage Islamic finance stakeholders to take more part in green sukuk issuance.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bilal. Bu Sylvie, I think there's questions from Zaki Mansur on the streams of pipelines, whether we anticipate as well for Indonesian case, because Malaysia apparently has very strong streams of pipelines projects.
So, sorry, Pak Taufik, sorry, Pak Lukman. So, can you elaborate more on the questions? Is this related to the question of pipeline integration?
Yes, as well. I think, and also the questions on pipelines of projects for sukuk as well as for equity markets for Islamic investment banking activities.
Okay. So for the pipeline, actually, for the in relation to the investment banking, in relation to the capital market, we don't have any plan to at the moment to issue another sukuk or to reach out to the capital market, but we do have pipeline project to be financed. So in terms of supply, yeah, we have ample of numbers of a project at the moment in the pipeline. We still use our internal funding at the moment to finance this. Given that the pandemic is the project is a bit slowed down, the pipeline is a bit slowed down. But once the economic is recovered and the project start to commence again. So if you look at the needs for the bigger size of this infrastructure financing, so yes, we do seeking for the alternative funding, alternative financing to finance this project. So yeah, that's from my side, Pak Luqman.
And any sense of integration with local regional players?
Oh yeah, I think before this event, actually, I have reached out to to CIMB actually, Encik Muhammad Safri. So I have reached out to your colleague actually in CIMB, because we know that the CIMB is very advanced in the Islamic banking. So we want to learn actually how we develop, how we are able to develop this Islamic finance. So as I mentioned in the presentation, that for SMI, the Sharia unit is still relatively new, since 2000, just established in 2017. So we need to learn a lot from the other bank who has growing or has expensive Sharia financing in this case. So we have a complex project to be financed, but we do have to learn about how we can develop this Sharia financing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bu Sylvie, for your response. And now we have actually Bu Dwi, we have two questions from the participants in the chat box. First, on the sukuk, the structure of sukuk negara, and also that investors are responding to issuance the pandemic situations.
Sorry, Pak Luqman, your voice just disappeared. Can you repeat it?
Of investors during the pandemic COVID-19, whether the issuance is oversubscribed or is interest is high on our issuance.
Okay.
The retail or the green.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I hope I can get your questions. The questions. First, actually, we just close our issuance for retail during the pandemic. The retail sukuk with tradable. Actually, the target only 5 trillion IDR, but surprisingly, that the result we reached for 25 trillion IDR. It shows that now for government instruments already, people already aware, and already there is an appetite from the people. When the people just have their idle money because they have less spending for during the pandemic, and they try to find the instrument that can credible instrument. So why we the government decided to issue the tradable instrument rather than non-tradable. Actually, for the first years, we already in the first quarter we already issue the tradable instrument, and for the next issuance, and third quarter, the plan is to issue for non-tradable instrument. But because of the situations, people need to place their money in the liquid instrument. Then we decided to issue tradable instrument. And this is a good thing because we already introduced for platform online since 2018. So during pandemic, we can provide the easier way for people to order and buy our retail suko 24/7. It means 24 hours, 7 days a week during offering period. And as I mentioned, we also for social impact or investment impacting, we already issue for cash wakaf link suko for the first time in March 2020. And coming Friday, we will launch for the cash wakaf link suko for retail. So it means that this is the way how government will provide tools to make people as a wakif will easier to do wakaf. And hopefully this kind of instrument will help the people who just got impact on this pandemic. And also on November, we will issue what we call green retail suko, also in platform online. This is the second one because we already issued this retail green suko last year. And retail suko actually one of the success story in the world because as I got information from Pak Safri in Malaysia, the retail suko just issue once, I think, because any other because there is other instrument that better benefit for the people, for the society. That's all about.
Thank you, Budwi. Thank you. Now we don't have much time for second rounds of Q&A, but I would notify that for Pak Ilham Putra and Buri Slawati to drop your email just in chat box because you have been selected to receive the giveaway. And unfortunately, we don't have answers for the question that I mentioned earlier. Now, before we close, I would like to invite all the panelists to give a closing statement, perhaps. Would we like to start? Any closing statement? We can't hear you, Bu. Ibu, mute masih?
Yeah, as our president mentions before that we have a dream for Indonesia to be a Sharia hub and economic hub in the world. So I think we need a hand in hands to all stakeholders to make the dream come true.
Inshallah. Bu Sylvie?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak in this forum today. And as we have a mandate that we carry to support and speed up the infrastructure development for Indonesia, so I'd like to work together or collaborate with any country in regional which has developed the Sharia financing for any kind of project in Indonesia, infrastructure project particularly, and also to work together to understand about the many kind of product that can be suitable and can be implemented for infrastructure financing. That's from my side, Pak Lukman.
Thank you, Pak. I'm sorry, And now, Safri, please. Yes, Safri. You still on mute?
Am not on mute anymore. Terima kasih Dr. Lukian and the distinguished panelists once again. Terima kasih banyak-banyak for the invitation. I really appreciate this on behalf of CIMB. It's been a great session. And I think my parting words or my last words are as follows. I think the journey for all of us is still at the I think at the infancy stage. We are still in the early days of doing Islamic finance, Islamic banking as a whole. Whether is it for the retail banking or commercial banking or even investment banking. And as Bu Sylvie was saying earlier, it's still an early days even for SPT SMI. But the beauty of doing Islamic banking in Indonesia, and speaking from our point of view in Malaysia, is that Indonesia has all the ingredients. In fact, Indonesia has got a lot more ingredients than Malaysia had. The SMI is in place now. The IICG in terms of providing guarantee for all the infrastructure projects is in place, just like what we have in Malaysia for Dana Jamin. And in fact, Malaysia is also learning from Indonesia. As Bu Dwi was saying earlier, the cash wakaf sukuk, the retail sukuk are a lot more developed in Jakarta than it is in Kuala Lumpur. That is something that Malaysia is trying to learn from Indonesia. So we are trying to learn, we're trying to see whether we can actually do that on a global scale. And so as I said earlier, stay tuned for that. That is something which is going to be extremely innovative for a global instrument and issuance. And so once again, thank you so much to Dr. Lukian and the organizing committee. And I look forward to participating in the future events. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam. Thank you, Safri. And then Dr. Bilal, please.
Yes, once again, I would like to thank you, Dr. Lukian, for this invitation. We have invited CIMB to participate in this international webinar. And my concluding remarks will be like, we have plenty of options, and there's huge potential of infrastructure development, especially in OIC countries for Islamic investment banks. But that is one side of the picture. Like other is the government support. We cannot succeed in inviting Islamic investment banks to participate in infrastructure financing without this proper support of government. So government has to play a very vital role, especially when it comes to infrastructure related strategies and policies. They can do a lot more in this regard, and also legal and regulatory framework. So if we have a strong legal and regulatory framework, it will be easier for Islamic investment banks to participate in infrastructure financing. And as far as CIMB is concerned, we will always be there to support our Islamic finance industry as a whole and to encourage sustainable finance, sustainability, and ESG for our stakeholders. Once again, thank you very much for inviting us. And it was a very interesting learning experience to listen to all the distinguished panelists on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bilal. And finally, of course, our Sheikhuna Ahmad Umar Fahad, Doctor, Fadal.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Right. First of all, correction, I'm not chef. You are the chef. So I'm just a layman. First of all, thank you very much once again for inviting me to this wonderful session. We have learned a lot actually. And it's good to meet those wonderful people again and bring back those IAEI memories. Well, there are a few things I would like to mention. Number one, talking from Islamic banking perspective, we have a long way to go. As our brother from CIMB has mentioned, we have a lot of hiccups to overcome, but there are also plenty of opportunities out there that we haven't explored, even 1% of the opportunities available for Islamic banking, particularly Islamic investment, right? with that, so we need to be aware of the potential opportunities as well as the potential obstacles that lays ahead. And point number 2, I would like to remind Malaysia and Indonesia, the rest of the OIC countries are looking at you as a role model, as an example, particularly Indonesia being the largest Muslim country, the largest economy in the OIC countries. So there's a lot that Indonesia is leading in OIC countries, but other OIC countries doesn't have the feeling of the presence of the Indonesia involvement in other financial issues or other OIC issues. So we expect more from our Indonesian brothers to lead the rest of OIC countries. The initiative, investment initiative, and other initiatives to bring these people together so that we can learn from one another, the expertise, the practical environment. Now you have, they have mentioned a lot of things that we need to learn from, like retail sukuk, like green sukuk. These are a lot of good examples where the rest of the OIC countries can learn. Malaysia has always been a leader in this part of the world. Everyone looks up to Malaysia being the pioneer of all the Islamic banking initiatives. So we still have that expectation of that part of the OIC countries. So I hope that you guys are aware of that expectation, and hopefully you can guide us. You may seek advice and help on theoretical aspects, but implementation and practice, we look up to you guys, and hopefully you will not disappoint us, and we have more of these conferences in the future, inshallah. All the best, and thank you.
Thank you so much for your kind words, inshallah. And thank you so much again for all the panels, Budwi, Bu Sylvie, Dr. Bilal, as well as Dr. Ahmad, and also Safri. And I think we have an announcement. Sorry, the committee has actually picked up all the winners. Is the committee, can you show the screen for the announcements of the winners, or should I just read it? So for the best questions winner, we have, so Pak Ilham Putra, and then the second one is Putri Swastika, and the third one is Fazal Ahmad Habib. And for the quiz winners, we have from Al Baraka Banking Group, Ibu Nurul, as well as Rahmania Nurul Fitri Atmijaya. So please drop your emails and contact. There you go. The applause from all the audience from all of us. Apologies for previous announcement. So this is the official one. And again, thank you so much for all the distinguished speakers for taking your time off your busy schedule. We do appreciate, and also all the participants for your questions, for your comments, as well as participations. Without your participation, of course, this event would just be a Zoom meeting. But this has been a great webinar, learning experience for all of us who aspire to establish or explore the possibility of Islamic investment banking institutions in Indonesia. Of course, the organizers, on behalf of all of us, we thank the Bank Indonesia, Ministry of Finance, PT SMA, IAEI, ISEF, as well as KNEKS, as well as all those who are working very hard behind the screens, the event organizers who have made these events momentous, memorable one for all of us. With that, we end with Alhamdulillah, billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We'll see you again, inshallah, next time.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. Thank you. Inshallah.
Terima kasih Bu Indri. Mas Hari.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Lukian. Syukran Tufel. Terima kasih Bu Indri.
Thank you.
Ya. you Dr. Bilal, thank you Dr. Omar.
Pak Diku semua, terima kasih Pak.
Terima kasih Pak.
Ya.
Pak Dr. Arif, terima kasih.
Pak Luky, Pak Basari, semua teman-teman.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Adi.
Pak Yono, terima kasih Pak.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Ya.
Pak Luky, Pak Basari, thank you Pak.
Siap, terima kasih Mas Reza.
Ya Pak.
Pak Reza, terima kasih. Terima kasih semuanya yang tidak bisa disebut satu, banyak sekali kawan-kawan dan